Hey everybody, welcome back. Again, Tony with Shinsho Yoga. And today I'd like to talk about bridge position, Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Bridge is another cooling pose that I often, in my flows, like to have in the wind down. Many teachers do. My teacher also did. Not a heat building pose, of course, but has its challenges like any posture does, especially on the shoulders, much like shoulder stand. So bridge has some of the same challenges that you would have in shoulder stand. Not as challenging, but if you have issues with the shoulders or the neck, you're going to run into some challenges probably with the posture. But bridge also has certain challenges with the front of the body. So bridge looks to really open the front of our body, right? In the end of our vinyasa flow is winding down to begin cooling down. So we, needless to say, start to go through these different postures to help us cool down, and one of them being bridge. But if we don't have openness in certain parts of the body, it can be a bit of a challenge. So bridge looking to open the front of the body, but also open here in our shoulders and our neck, and also is a bit of an inversion, not an official inversion, but when you lift into it, when you bring the heart up, the heart is now above the head, right? So now, again, working in a bit of a different direction. Again, not a official inversion, but kind of a quasi-inversion on that. So if you have challenges in the shoulders, or if you have challenges with the front of the body, especially in the legs, bridge might be a challenge for you. So I'm going to offer you some modifications that you can do with a block. So without further ado, let us get into bridge here and talk about how we set ourselves up for this. One of the main things in bridge is, much like in shoulder stand, is going to be keeping the neck still. So in this posture, do not turn your head from side to side, the same as in shoulder stand, Sarvangasana. Because there is a lot of pressure on the neck, you don't want to turn from side to side. You could tweak a vertebrae. The story I always like to tell is my teacher one day in class came by, and I guess I had a particularly good-looking bridge position, and he said, good job. And I turned and I looked at him. I was like, and my neck, I felt it when it happened. So we keep our neck still in bridge. So our bridge position, we start here on our backs with our arms long along the sides of the body. The palms are down. Now our feet, we want flat down onto our mats, and we want our legs basically slightly greater than hip distance apart. We don't want the legs in like this so they're in line with the hips. We don't want the feet way out here so they're at the edges of the mat, basically in line with the shoulders. You want somewhere in between that. So you want you to have basically a little bit wider than the hip, less than the shoulder here. Additionally, we want our ankles close to our glutes, stacked under our knees the best we can. Now, being that you're in this position on the ground, looking up, you can't see where your legs are. So I use my arms as a guide. Now, I have long arms, so this is going to be different for each person. So as you can see, I can basically touch my ankle, and I know for me that about here is about right. Again, it's not perfect, but you don't want to have your feet out here, right? And you don't want to have them in this way, so you're up on your toes. Your feet are flat. Legs are slightly greater than hip distance apart. The arms are long along the sides of the body. Palms face down. Ankles close to glutes. Knees stacked over the ankles. Then you're going to take, with a breath, on your exhale, you're going to lift your hips up to the sky, wiggling the shoulder blades underneath the girdle to spread the sternum, spreading the collarbone. You want to take the chest towards the chin towards the ceiling. So we're leaning the head back a bit. You don't want to stay in like this. You want to kind of bring the chin up a bit. And we're going to close the eyes. Breathe. And we can lower with the exhale, the hips back down to the mat slowly. And depending on what your teacher does, I often will have my students drop their inner knees to touch and bring their arms wide like a T or a cactus arms, whatever is best at that time, to be able to just counter the pose and rest there. Albeit a cooling pose, it can be somewhat intense. As you can see, you have to have openness in the front of the legs to be able to really access the pose, right? Also, you need openness in the shoulders and the neck. If here, coming into here, into the hips is tight, or up here into here is tight, it's going to make it very hard to come into the posture. So, what do you do in the meantime? Well, that's what we have blocks for. Now, again, much like the modifications I gave for shoulder stand, this I would prefer to have a foam block than a cork block with. Again, the cork block is great for stability, but when you're resting on it, these hard edges are challenging, right? And you can often be can be very uncomfortable. So, for this position, if you have a foam block, I would recommend it. But if you're in a class somewhere and, you grab these because, again, I like the cork ones for the stability, and you need that mainly, you make do. Life will go on. But with the block, we have some options to be able to do, to be able to help us with this posture if we can't get into it. If we can't lift into it for whatever reason, either tightness here in the legs or in the hips, because both of them affect that, or tightness here in the shoulders and the back into the neck. Maybe you have some thoracic spine issues that are preventing you from getting into that. Well, we have some options here. One of the options is to take a block, much like in shoulder stand modification, and place it underneath the sacrum. Everything else is still the same, right? The arms stay long along the sides of the body. Palms are facing down. You still want the legs hip slightly greater than hip distance. You want to keep the ankles stacked under the knees, right? And you still want to spread the collarbone. You don't want to put it up there and just kind of sink. You still want to do everything the same. It's just modified. So again, I'm going to try to spread my collarbone. I'm going to try to wiggle my shoulder blades underneath the body here. I'm going to push my chest out, and I'm going to push the chin up, the same as I would in shoulder stand. It's just that it's heavily modified right now. But if that's where your body is, that's where your body is. This is perfectly fine. Props are never cheating. They're helping you get into the full expression of your pose for your body. I would rather have a student use a prop than skip a pose. The poses are in there for a reason. And when you come out the same way, just take the block out and come into rest. Now, the block, of course, has multiple heights, so maybe you start on the lower height, right? Maybe after some time, or maybe the next time you're in class, you need a little more. Well, take it on the higher setting. And once again, coming to the sacrum here, right? And you do the same thing. Again, try to wiggle the shoulder blades underneath the girdle. You want to spread that sternum, the palms are down, and letting that chest move towards the chin move towards the ceiling. Now, one further, again, if that's not enough and you want to go for higher, now at this point, you could probably, if you're getting up into this, could probably support yourself. I don't necessarily like this height and doing this because this really alters the geometry here in my back, and I really can't get into the full posture. At that point, I would rather just do it on my own. But everybody's body is different. You have to do what's best for yours on that day. Some days you may be able to do the full one. Some days you may have to do the modified one. Someday it may feel better just to do the modified one, even though you can get into the other one. You're just like, you know what? I've really put in a lot into my shoulders. Maybe you had a shoulder heavy practice that day and they're tired and you really don't want to have to do all of that, You just want to take the block and put it under there. If you don't have blocks in your studio or at home, you could take a blanket. Granted, it's not going to have the same height because the blanket, of course, is going to compress. But needless to say, it's a possibility. So bridge position. Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Wonderful cool down posture, but can be challenging if we don't have the openness in the front of the legs and the hips or in the neck and shoulders. So you have modifications. As always, breathe and follow the breath. As long as you're doing that and your intention is honest, you're doing yoga. So, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thanks again for watching. Namaste.